Language Foundations Vocabulary Flashcards, helping you achieve understanding.
An item of information that is typical of a class or group. An advocate who represents someone else's policy or purpose. A member of the United States House of Representatives. A person who represents others. Being or characteristic of government by representation in which citizens exercise power through elected officers and representatives. Representative government is defined by Abraham Lincoln as government of the people, by the people, for the people. Serving to represent or typify. Representative moviegoers. Standing for something else. The bald eagle is representative of the United States. A representative form or pattern. I profited from his example. Something to be imitated. An occurrence of something. But there is always the famous example of the Smiths. An item of information that is typical of a class or group. This patient provides a typical example of the syndrome. Punishment intended as a warning to others. They decided to make an example of him. A task performed or problem solved in order to develop skill or understanding. You must work the examples at the end of each chapter in the textbook. Showing by example. An item of information that is typical of a class or group. Artwork that helps make something clear or attractive. A visual representation, a picture or diagram, that is used to make some subject more pleasing or easier to understand. An occurrence of something. Another instance occurred yesterday. Clarify by giving an example of. An item of information that is typical of a class or group. Someone who mediates between speakers of different languages. Computer science, a program that translates and executes source language statements one line at a time. An advocate who represents someone else's policy or purpose. Someone who uses art to represent something. His paintings reveal a sensitive interpreter of nature. An advocate who represents someone else's policy or purpose. The meeting was attended by spokespersons for all the major organs of government. The sound made by the vibration of vocal folds modified by the resonance of the vocal tract. A singer takes good care of his voice. The melody carried by a particular voice or instrument in polyphonic music. An advocate who represents someone else's policy or purpose. Expressing in coherent verbal form. I gave voice to my feelings. Utter with vibrating vocal cords. A means or agency by which something is expressed or communicated. The voice of the law. A sound suggestive of a vocal utterance. The noisy voice of the waterfall. Give voice to. He voiced his concern. Linguistics. The grammatical relation, active or passive, of the grammatical subject of a verb to the action that the verb denotes. Metonymy, a singer. He wanted to hear trained voices sing it. Something suggestive of speech in being a medium of expression. The wee small voice of conscience. The ability to speak. He lost his voice. The distinctive quality or pitch or condition of a person's speech. A shrill voice sounded behind us. A member of the United States House of Representatives. A member of the United States House of Representatives. Representing or appealing to or adapted for the benefit of the people at large. Democratic art forms. Characterized by or advocating or based upon the principles of democracy or social equality. Democratic government. Belong to or relating to the Democratic Party. Of a feature that helps to distinguish a person or thing. That is typical of you. Conforming to a type. The typical, or normal, American. Exhibiting the qualities or characteristics that identify a group or kind or category. A typical American girl. Being or serving as an illustration of a type. The free discussion that is emblematic of democracy. Serving as a visible symbol for something abstract. A crown as emblematic of royalty. Serving as a visible symbol for something abstract. Relating to or using or proceeding by means of symbols. Serving as a visible symbol for something abstract. Used in or characteristic of or containing allegory. Allegorical stories. Relating to or using or proceeding by means of symbols. Symbolic logic. Serving as a visible symbol for something abstract. The spinning wheel was as symbolic of colonial Massachusetts as the codfish. Using symbolism. Symbolic art. Used in or characteristic of or containing allegory. Allegorical stories. A message received and understood. Communication theory. A numerical measure of the uncertainty of an outcome. The signal contained thousands of bits of information. A collection of facts from which conclusions may be drawn. Formal accusation of a crime. Knowledge acquired through study or experience or instruction. A person who pleads for a cause or propounds an idea. A person who pleads for a cause or propounds an idea. A lawyer who pleads cases in court. Push for something. Speak, plead, or argue in favor of. The doctor advocated a smoking ban in the entire house. A person who pleads for a cause or propounds an idea. A person who pleads for a cause or propounds an idea. A mathematical notation indicating the number of times a quantity is multiplied by itself. Someone who expounds and interprets or explains. Someone who makes or enacts laws. Someone who negotiates, confers with others in order to reach a settlement. Someone who negotiates, confers with others in order to reach a settlement. Someone who negotiates, confers with others in order to reach a settlement. Civil law. A law established by following earlier judicial decisions. A system of jurisprudence based on judicial precedents rather than statutory laws. An example that is used to justify similar occurrences at a later time. A subject mentioned earlier, proceeding in time. Proceeding in time, order, or significance. A formal written defense of something you believe in strongly. A poor example. It was an apology for a meal. An expression of regret at having caused trouble for someone. He wrote a letter of apology to the hostess. An example that is used to justify similar occurrences at a later time. A deliberate act of omission. With the exception of the children, everyone was told the news. An instance that does not conform to a rule or generalization. All her children were brilliant. The only exception was her last child. Grounds for adverse criticism. His authority is beyond exception. A defense of some offensive behavior or some failure to keep a promise, etc. He kept finding excuses to stay. Excuse, overlook, or make allowances for, be lenient with. Excuse someone's behavior. Ask for permission to be released from an engagement. Serve as a reason or cause or justification of. Your need to sleep late does not excuse your late arrival at work. Accept an excuse for. Please excuse my dirty hands. Grant exemption or release to. Please excuse me from this class. Defend, explain, clear away, or make excuses for by reasoning. A poor example. A poor excuse for an automobile. A note explaining an absence. He had to get his mother to write an excuse for him.
Become our student and get access to effective and free educational materials. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to become a part of our growing YouTube community and to learn English effectively.